Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and I am on fire up my butthole. I am so excited this week because I have my beautiful, amazing friend, Tessa Hope. Welcome, Sexy Banana. Hello, hello.
You're a lovely lady, lovely Walnut. It's so nice to be here.
Listen, Walnut, I'm so excited because Tessa and I are friends in real life. We lived together. We did university together, and not only university together, we did theatre together. So that's a whole other bond. We got all the bonds.
A whole lot of history. There's so much history.
I love it. So, Walnut, Tessa is going to have, well, what are we going to chat about? Tessa is just the most wonderful person to talk about confidence. I feel like you've always had this way about you, how you present yourself and are, and you have this little confidence that I've always really, really admired. So I'm excited to chat to you, my friend. So Tessa, do you want to introduce yourself to the Walnuts who have not met you before we dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hi Walnuts. Hey everybody listening, watching. It's very exciting to be here. So my name's Tessa Hope. Originally I was in uni days, my name was Tessa Richards. So that could be a connection there if anybody went to uni as well. But now I'm Tessa Hope because I'm married. I got married in 2019. And it's I'm a feminist, but I changed my name when I got married because Hope was prettier than Richards. So I just heard that's way nicer. So
it's practical.
It's practical. Yeah, it's fabulous. So I grew up in Palmerston North. I moved here to study. I did 4 years of study. I studied theatre, English lit, and teaching. So up until very recently, I've been a teacher for 9 years, an English teacher in high school. I've also been a dean. And then I made a pretty drastic life choice to not do that anymore and do something new. And I think I'm 33, and so the last couple of years, and the 30s are just such a power decade. And I'm so here for my 30s. And the last couple of years have been I've had a really big paradigm shift just in myself of I am on a quest for joy, I want to do things and surround myself with people that bring me joy. I just sort of reflected and thought, I'm doing all of these things that do not bring me joy, and what the fuck am I doing? What is happening? What joy is important. Obviously, life brings waves of all sorts of stuff, but we should be searching for joy, and that's what kind of it had this big shift in me. And I've made quite a few changes in my life, and not just with my career, but also the way I see myself. And it's so interesting that you say I'm a confident person, because I am a confident person, but I'm more confident in my physical self now than I ever have been in my life.
Wow.
Ever. And it's still a journey, but I suppose I would define myself as a feminist, as a cis woman, a cis straight woman. I define myself as a friend. And just, I want to be the best me,
Yes, and that's why I want to talk to you. And I knew this would come up because we don't always see ourselves. It's that thing on the topic of confidence. We always see something in other people that they don't actually see themselves. And so I'm glad I reflected that back at you, because I remember when we lived together, you had this crop top on, and you were like, "This looks so good. Look at me trying out this crop top," and I was like, she's so confident. I could never say this looks so good. You know what I mean? But now all the walnut work, now I say that to myself, now I'm I'm embodying the the Tessa back then who was like, I look so good, but now I'm doing it too. A place where I never imagined that I could. You probably don't even remember what crop top it was or anything, but it was impactful.
Truly do not. That was a motherfuck of a year. That one, like that was my final year of study. Like that was fucking wild. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think there's been multiple parts of my life where I think I have feigned confidence in different ways in order to overcompensate for how I was actually feeling about my body. And I think at that point was probably one of those times where I was like, if I overdo it, then nobody will question what I look like, because I was so insecure about my body and what I looked like. And I have been my whole life, and I'm just breaking through that now. And it's so interesting that the way one person perceives something is totally different to another.
Absolutely.
Because growing up, when I was like a child and then moving into being a teenager, I went through this hefty goth phase, like all cool kids do. Yeah.
I don't know if I ever left, but it's there.
Yeah. We are the best people. Yeah, it's still here. It's still here. It's still Cradle of Filth and Cannibal Corpse right in here. But because I was a tomboy as well for the first little bit of my teenage years, and it became this, I've only recently unpacked this, right? But I realized that what I was doing, I was so insecure because I didn't want to be the fat girl. But I was, and I'm okay with that now. But the way I presented myself was like, well, if people are going to make fun of me, and if people are going to hate me, and if I'm going to be the butt of the joke, I would rather it be because I was wearing black lipstick rather than the fact I was fat. And it just, and I use the word fat as a joyful word, as a descriptive, like as an adjective, as opposed to a put down or a slur. And I know not all people do that. We can say bigger bodies, and I'm fine with that as well. But I so feel for baby Tessa. Like, poor baby Tessa.
I know. Yeah, I'm getting like a little bit mosh because I think, oh, you just carry so much. I had a conversation earlier today about this, like where comments really, really hit you. I was talking about how I had my first hater, and like, I'm celebrating now because I'm like, I got a hater. It means I made it and I'm famous.
You've made it, babe. You are up there.
Yeah. But like, the comment was about that I need to lose some weight or something like that from a random like bloody troll on the internet. And it's like, make a joke. Yeah, you hater, ha 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 now. But if past Laz had got a comment like that, or even family members around the dinner table, those comments, man, back then they stuck and they fucked me up for
like it fucks you up and people don't even, it's like there's insults and then there's just comments and there's just things, but it fucks you up, and it takes a lifetime to undo that damage. And I just, like, now that I've unpacked it and I look back, but I did enjoy the gothy stuff. I didn't just do it because I didn't want, like, I thought, well, if people are going to look at me, it might as well be because of this. But that was where it came from, and that's a shame. I think that's a shame. Because on that note, this is a perfect segue into this poem. I brought some homework.
She's prepared for us, Walnut. She's prepared. We're getting a
reading. I'm very prepared. It's not too long. Like, I could just read a little section, or you could clip it or whatever.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's a collection of work. It's called Hysterical, and it's a collection of poetry by Olivia Hall and Carrie Radzinski, and they're like local New Zealand poets, and they did like a feminist poetry show at Bats last year, and they travel around the country. This collection's called Hysterical. I know it's backwards.
I love it. Gorgeous. No, it comes out forwards on my screen, so lovely.
Yeah, okay.
Put it in the show notes format for you.
Oh yes, okay, fabulous. So this might get a bit emotional. Okay. God. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I'm ready. Bitch, I'm ready. Okay.
This is called "The Revolution Will Not Be Self-Love" by Olivia Hall. 7 years ago, I wrote a love letter to my body and gave it permission to praise my softest parts, to thank the mountains of my stomach and the ripples of my thighs, these pieces of me that are alive and worthy. There have been days I have loved myself enough to nourish rather than starve, to not count or weigh or punish. And on days when love has felt impossible, I have returned to those words of kindness once written for a body that has survived every battle I have waged against it. This body, which was not birthed a bag of bones, but has always been congratulated on loss. I could write thousands of self-love poems, one for each young person who hates their growing body, but I know they would still be living in a world desperate to be rid of them. This world says fat bodies are a death sentence, teaches us thin is better, no matter how it is achieved. It has taken me years to unlearn this hatred, while my body is a punching bag, while our rotting world lets this hatred fester and grow. It is there in the warning my flatmate gives when he jokes he will stand next to me on Halloween and make sure the fat kids don't get any candy. My other flatmate's laughter suffocating, burrowing, echoing. It's the plea in my mother's voice when she asks, do I look fat? Have I put on weight? This woman I have only ever wanted more of, desperate to be less. I have felt the hatred, the stares as I squeeze my hips into aeroplane seats, contort my body to make space on the bus. It is my shadow in every doctor's office where they beg me to shrink, do not care how extreme the methods or how many times it fails, where they ask again, can I cut out half your stomach? We teach children fat bodies belong to villains, make fat characters the punchline of every joke, and then we wonder why those children spend their whole lives terrified they'll become one. We watch as they grow into poachers, hunting out fat people on Twitter to hiss, you are killing yourselves and we will not save you. But that fear they may one day look like me is always there. It is the way people who claim to love me talk about fat bodies with disdain and disgust, pinch tiny rolls of skin and groan as though my fat body is not in the room. It is the way my body is invisible and so very visible all of the time. It is the impossible work I must do every day to exist in this body and survive, and still it is not enough. It is not enough if you are not speaking up, if you are not protecting the fat people in your life, if you are still flinching at that word. I want to write to younger me, the little girl who wanted to be thin more than she wanted to be alive. Tell her there is a permanence to her fatness, and that is okay. I want to tell her she will grow up in a world that sees her and loves all she has to give, a world which has made space for her, glorious and blooming. But I would be lying.
I am dead.
What
Right?
the fuck?
Oh my
Right?
god, look at Marino.
I know. Is this woman the not most incredible person?
Oh my god. And your voice with that paired with that as well, Tessa. Like, you're such a good reader and articulation. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm trying not to cry. My
Yeah, that just
look at my
I know, because I've read that so many times, so now it doesn't make me cry. But when I first did, I just sat there like, this is what it is. This is what it means. This is what it feels like. Someone's put it into words. And that comment about her mother.
Oh. Yeah.
This woman I've
Still
only
happens.
wanted more of, desperate to be less.
Oh, beautiful. Well, sadly beautiful. What's that word?
So
Somber.
sad.
I don't know.
It's so beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, and the whole collection is just amazing. And some are funny, and some are sort of quite violent and angry, and because it's called Hysterical, right? Which is such a fucking misogynistic word just to describe women who care about stuff. You're like,
okay. I was gonna wait for the moment, but I think that we should just go for it.
so just jump in here.
Tell me, Tessa, because I feel like we're all a little bit of a feminical, but tell me what your definition of a feminist is. When you say I am a feminist, what does that mean?
Oh.
Loaded the gun. Let's go.
Feminism. Well, feminism means to me, it's equity as opposed to equality. I think is a really important distinction.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So equality is important. Equity is important, but is more important. The most important thing to me about feminism is what is intersectionality, which is, for people who don't know, is feminism isn't just about white cis women, right? Like it's not just Kate Shepherd and that's feminism, you know, the right to vote and all this. Intersectionality is about gender diverse people. It's about neurodiversity. It's about like the entire queer community as well. Like if you call yourself a feminist and you're not protecting the trans women in your life, or not, I think feminism is about using the power that you have in your space to protect another. Is how I feel as a feminist. Like it's like I face adversity because I am a woman, but I also have a lot of privilege because I like lead a comfortable life and I'm white and I'm straight, you know, and it's important to acknowledge those. And I'm not, you know, people get really afraid of that conversation, acknowledging their own privilege. And it's just so important to do that, because if you acknowledge your own privilege, it means you can see those that don't have those privileges and you can work to help them. So I think in the core of it, feminism is it's not about me, if you like. Yeah, it's about looking out for others, and it includes men too. Like the patriarchy and misogyny affect men deeply as well. Yeah, so I think as a feminist, I want to protect and help those who don't have what I have. That's what it means to me.
Thank you, because I feel, yeah, you've opened up that, like, you've described it as sort of a way of like opening up the door for collaboration, community, like being one, joining together, not being like when, and this is patriarchy and everything, and not being a little bit ignorant and not opening my eyes to things. But when I used to think of the word feminist, I would think of rah, paint the White House with my period blood and be angry and grow my body hair. Yeah, but it's like that's a very small part of the rage that comes with feminism. It's not a feminist. Do you know what I mean?
It's part of the movement, but it's not part of the it's part of the movement, but it's not all that it is, I think.
Yeah.
And it's you mentioned it was a little while ago, and there was a Walnutty podcast about having a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
That one, which I loved, and it's like finding your place at the table, and it was beautiful, and I loved that episode because it is, you have to, like, we all have, and we're still finding places at the table, and I think once we find our space at the table, when we can get there and we can find our place and we can sit at the table, then we should look around and see who else doesn't have a seat. You know, who else is missing from the table? Because once you're at the table, then you have the ability to pull up a chair for somebody else and invite them in. You know, That's how I feel anyway. And it's not just one table. Life's not one table.
Yeah,
it's a whole series of tables. You know.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Is we have to do all this work on ourselves and make sure that we're safe, and then when we have the capacity to, we can look around and see who's looking for a seat at their table as well.
Oh, yeah. I love that, because there've been a couple of conversations about tables, and I think one episode I talked with Kate about something at my work, and they're talking about a ledge and how typically and stereotypically women in my organization, they come off as like really butch, really bitchy, really arrogant, like they have to try and up the ante to be one of the boys and this sort of thing. And we were talking about how this guy said this example of when there's a little ledge, the men are always trying to pull each other up, and then my friend Kate pivoted that the visual of the ledge and the men pulling each other up, and she said, yeah, but how big is the ledge for the women? There probably isn't space to pull other women up because of society and all the things, and it's no one's fault. It is how it is. So I love that you've touched on that, where it's like when we're at the table, when we're on the ledge, we do have to make ourselves safe first and then be able to bring other people in. So that could also be, where this like rah, I'm a bitch, I'm arrogant, I'm cocky, all these things that women are apparently not allowed to be, that could be where that comes from, right? Because it's creating that space for yourself and making sure you're respected and in your seat at that table or ledge or whatever the thing is, right?
Exactly. And it's that sense of, for so long in history, women haven't had the energy or the space or time to do anything more than try and pull themselves up on that ledge, right? For most of history, women have either not been able to reach or have been hanging on by a fingernail, and then another person will come along on the ledge and stomp on their hand, so they let go, and I think when it takes so much energy to pull yourself up onto the ledge, because that's an interesting difference too. There are men pulling each other up onto the ledge, and women are just trying to pull themselves up, and people of all genders as well, like the whole gender spectrum. Anybody that's not a straight white man, basically, needs to exert different levels of strength to get up onto that ledge. And when you're there, especially like if you're part of a minority and have spent your whole life just trying to fight to get on that ledge or have a seat at the table, you have no energy to look back down and see who needs to be pulled up, because if you reach down and try and pull someone else, you're going to fall back off, because it takes different amounts of energy to get up. And I think in history, the people that have been in charge, so men, have only ever looked for people who look like themselves to pull up onto the ledge, and have refused to help anybody else. And again, it's not saying that men are terrible and are going, fuck all of you, stomp, stomp, stomp. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they haven't looked back to see who's hanging off the edge, is how I think of it. Right? It's your scope of awareness, right?
Yeah.
And the more you broaden your scope of awareness, the more everybody broadens their scope of awareness, the more we can dismantle the patriarchy. Because if we're all looking around to see who's missing, then everybody's in. It's just so simple.
I know, and it just becomes such a buzzword. I'd love your opinion, Tessa. Like, when I say feminist or patriarchy, they come loaded with such aggression, right? Where there are people in my life who are like, it immediately heckles. It's like, oh, patriarchy, oh, your patriarchy bullshit, you're getting sucked into this, because they have an idea of the feminist being the paint the walls with your period blood and and grow body hair so you can make braids and everything. Like, they have this skewed idea. So I would love to know from you, Tessa, how do you educate somebody in your life, if you have, or how would you if they had this view? Like, I find it, when you're saying it's so tiring, only I feel like a lot of women or people in our position understand the meaning of I'm tired, and not just being because you had a bad sleep. It's like, how do you describe or educate someone on what I'm tired means? Have you had this?
That's such an interesting question, right? Because like I've grown and matured a lot, and I'd say the last 10 years, because it was like in my early 20s, it was like, fuck all of you, and this, we're gonna fuck you, and I'm gonna scream at you, and I'm gonna shout, and I'm gonna prove all the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Get fucked, you know. But now that I'm older, it's so hard, right? Because sometimes, you know, when this is part of sort of being a woman for me as well, when you know your shit about something, right? Like I've done a lot of reading about feminism, and I've done a lot of work, and a lot of the content that I've taught in my classes over the last 9 years has been pushing my feminist agenda, if you like, but just giving kids scope of what, you know, giving young people a scope of what's going on in the world. And I do a lot of reading, and it's a big part of my life. And previously, if people have asked me questions, the questions are loaded. They're not genuine questions. They're like, also, what is a woman then? If you're going to have a discussion about like trends, you know, and like people bring it up and you mention something and someone asks, well, what do you think a woman is then? Or what is it? Those aren't questions. You know, they're not asking you questions. Yeah, totally. They're not asking you questions to get an answer. They're asking you questions to bait you, so then you'll get hysterical, and then they have that ammunition, go, oh, calm down. And just, it's all this fucking, yeah, I can't. So there are people in my life that ask me those questions and bait me in that way. And really, my most recent answer has been something along the lines of, I am an expert in this area. I'm not going to sit here and teach you something that you don't want to be taught.
Ooh.
It is not my responsibility to pull you out of ignorance, especially when you're not interested in joining the table.
Yeah, wow. Oh, I feel fear. I feel fear when you say that, because I can't imagine, and that this is probably because I am not as educated, but I do have opinions, and I have these safe discussions like this, and on Walnut Wednesday with other walnuts as well. And I pick and choose those spaces and agree and feel it and have it and feel tired.
Yes. Oh, exhausting.
But
yeah.
I couldn't imagine replying that to someone who's gone, I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't be able to say, I'm not going to do this to you because fuck you.
Yeah, that's the summary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that, because I think it's whether people are willing to listen, right? And most of the time, like 99% of the time, when people ask me those questions, they're loaded and they're looking for a fight. They're looking for an argument, and they don't want to actually hear my answer. They just are waiting for me to stop talking so they can spout all their homophobic, transphobic, misogynist bullshit. And it's like, well, why am I gonna, like, I'm not gonna change your mind. And I think it's so interesting, that concept of being tired. Man, am I tired of smashing my head against a brick wall trying to pull people out of ignorance that don't want to be there. That don't want to leave, I should say, you know, like, and that's what's fascinating to me about things like transphobia, or, you know, trans exclusionary radical feminists and people like that. Like, they can't just see a table of people having a very nice time and go, that dinner party's not for me. That's not for me, you know. They would rather, instead of walking away, they would rather go in and fucking upturn the table and punch someone in the face and like tip the chairs over. It just makes no sense to me that people can't just leave other people the fuck alone. And I've gone off tangent here, but it was the table metaphor again.
Yeah,
really
no,
quick.
absolutely.
Yeah. It's that, and honest, and it's not every day that I turn around to someone and go like, I'm not having this conversation with you. But that is my response, actually. Like, if it's a situation like this where we can chat and we can be open with each other, or if somebody would start their question with, can you please explain to me, you know, as opposed to, what's up with this, blah, blah, blah. Like, the phrasing of the question is really important, you know, and I so relate. Like, I am so tired because because I feel like all of history, women have been relied on to like fill in the gaps and, you know, make sure society's actually running from behind the scenes. And I owe it to my ancestors and all the women that have fought before me, and all the queer people and all the trans people who have been here before me. I sort of owe it to them to kind of say, no, fuck you, you do it. You fucking read a book. I'm not going to give you the cliff notes. You fucking read it. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not doing the work for you. It's very interesting, right? Because someone might be listening to me now and going, well, you can't simultaneously bitch about people being ignorant and not want to pull them out of ignorance. It's not my job.
Yeah.
Not my job. Not my job. Your fucking problem. You read a book. You read about it.
If you,
because I'm fucking tired.
Yeah, and if you genuinely actually want to, right? Like the answers will be there. They are there if you genuinely want to hear them, and 99% of the time it is not that. And that's why spaces like this are so important. And Walnut, you don't have to agree with anything that's going on here, but as long as we have places like this where it is safe to just use our voice. And yeah, you're so good at articulating these things, Tessa. I just love you so much. I've been sitting here staring at you, like speaking, and then my brain goes off into all these different areas. Like I feel like we need to make this like a 3-hour long like Joe Rogan experience, but the other way around.
I so love that.
But let's go back to this confidence, because I feel like you're really good on the topic of voice and speaking and being brave enough to say, I don't want to have this conversation with you. I know that there are a lot of walnuts in the audience where that coming out of somebody's mouth, of a walnut's mouth, sometimes it's easier to just be quiet and to not say anything, and for fear of the outcome, or even just they've never used their voice before and things like that. Tell me about you and your voice, and why do you feel like your voice is important?
Wow, that's a beautiful question, and I know that and finding your voice takes so long, you know, and it's different for everybody as well. I think my voice is important to me because that's the expression of my identity and who I am. I use my voice to express what is important to me and what the key things are in my life and what I want to do and how I want to say it. And I think the other thing is that I think your voice changes. It's a movable thing. Like, we all are different and we change at different parts of our life, and it's okay for your voice to change. So you can have one type of voice in your life and then develop and change and do other things. I think it can be, you know, saying, I found my voice and that's who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Your voice is a reflection of your identity. And that's a hard question.
I'm sorry, darling. It just kind of came out and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful question. I need to reflect on it.
Don't be sorry. I think it's that, it's when you figure out like who you want to be, because I think I said that to you in my notes. You were like, you asked me, what does being a walnut mean? You know,
yeah.
What is being a walnut? And I said it's about being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, which was a big growth step for me. It's about being honest with yourself, and you can think to yourself, this is who I want to be, you know? And if you're working towards this person that you want to be, I think that's how your voice is going to develop. It's about having those mantras in your head, or whatever it takes to get you up in the morning and keep going and pushing through and doing you. Who do you want to be? Because you don't just have to be the same person. We're movable and we're flexible and we're made up of so many different parts. Like, I say I'm a feminist, but I'm also a lot of other things. And
Yeah.
my voice is a reflection of all of those things. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what else to say because this one's so good. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for being here, Tessa, and thank you. I would love to know as well. So, Walnut, Tessa and I, like I've said, we know each other, right? But it was Tessa who actually messaged me and was like, I would love to be on the Walnut Wednesday podcast. I don't know why she was Southern, but she was. And I was like, duh, yeah, of course. But Tessa, like, what did you feel in your voice? I feel like, Walnut, I'm talking to you now. I feel like there is a Walnut listening who's like, I would love to be on Walnut Wednesday, the podcast, and don't feel brave enough in their voice, in their butthole, in their wherever, to like be like, Les, can I please come and visit? So tell me how it felt for you to, like, did you just get like a burst of like, I'm gonna ask, or was it like, were you afraid? Well, probably not afraid because we're friends, but like,
I was afraid, babe. I was afraid. It's that I've been doing a lot of work to fight that inner voice that is like, you are not good enough. You can't do that. That's not for you. And I've done a lot of work on that. And I've, like, in the last year, and it was actually after leaving teaching, I was able to find myself more because I had time and space to be me, and I wasn't so exhausted I couldn't function. And I'm trying to step out and do new things. So I entered a poetry competition a little while ago. I want to join a creative non-fiction writing class because I want to do some writing, but I had to keep telling myself, what you have to say is valid. That's so hard when you're told your whole life basically to shh, you know, or being spoken over, or being, I remember it, you know, man, I wish I could go back and do university again, because I'm so much more confident. At uni, I just was not. I was like, there are people much smarter than me in this room, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna quietly sit here.
Although in our little outcasty defense as previous goth kids, it was a bit cliquey, and they were cool. They were so much cooler than us, and I just wanted to be cool like them.
Oh my god, so not cool.
I know, it was hard. That's why we bonded. But anyway, continue. Yes.
Yeah, there's always clickiness, and theatre can be a real victim of that for sure. And I was just like, I don't fucking know. I'm just gonna I don't know. It was a whole thing.
We got through it. We did it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but I did. I watch your reels, and I listen to the Walnut Wednesday podcast. It pops up. It's like new episode, and I pop it on. I have a listen, and I took a lot of courage and a lot of self-talk to be like, I have things to say. And because you are so welcoming and kind and joyful and just radiate this like beautifulness, I was like, we could have a little chat about some things.
Yeah.
I just because you make it so easy to just get in touch and be like, hey, but I did feel weird about it, because I was basically sending you this Instagram message being like, would you like to talk to me? It felt so weird. It felt so weird. And I had to I thought about it for like a few weeks. It wasn't just like, oh, this, like, oh, no. I had to like psych myself up, and I rewrote the message 3 times because I didn't know how to say, would you like to talk to me? I'm a person. I just, it's that mantra of, I suppose it's a mantra for me of like, what I have to say is important. What I have to say is valid. My voice is important. I could help somebody else. Like, I can say things, you know? Yeah. And it's bravery. It's about, you gotta be brave. But that's hard.
It's so hard. And
so
honestly,
hard.
Tessa, that's where Walnut Wednesday essentially started for me as well. And my book too, like, it's this, I'm a feeler of feelings, and I think really deeply, and sometimes my thoughts don't connect with my voice correctly, and in particular if it's in group situations, or if I'm talking to someone who I deem as, you know, strong in their voice or whatever, it doesn't come out, and I can come off really, well, I am very fluffy, but I can come off really ditzy, and like, you know, like I make up my own words and things, and it's just a las thing. But I have depth and I have thoughts and really, really deep feelings about stuff. And so that's where like Walnut Wednesday sort of came from, because it's like I want to talk about stuff that matters, that is real, that are things that are not just like, oh, I'm a happy little delicious banana. I have that too. Like, and that's great. But there's more. There's so much more.
There's so much going on. We're multi-faceted beings. We don't have to be just one thing. And that's how kind of feminism is to me, that idea of like, you can have these deep thoughts and ideas and talk about like fluffy buttholes or whatever. Like, you can express what you need to express in whatever fucking way you want to, which is why the arts, and theatre is so wonderful. But it reminds me of what feminism kind of became. I don't remember, I can't give like a shout out because I don't know who this was, but it was on Instagram or on some woman said on like a comedy special or something. She explained that before the 90s, feminism was this really kind of complicated, academic, scary, you had to like have a PhD to understand it. It was quite inaccessible to a lot of people. And then in the 90s, the Spice Girls came along and managed to totally open up this world of feminism and summarize it with this and girl power. And it's just like, yeah, that's it. Girl power. Just, that's it. That's it. And it's that, like, big ideas and big concepts, you can express them however you want because you are valid and your voice is valid and how you want to use your voice is valid, I think, anyway.
Oh my gosh, I have so much more I want to talk to you about. I just love you so much.
You're just the sweetest. I've got one tiny little section of a book that I think is like, will be the perfect way to round off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's round.
Let's round. So this is a section from a book called Honeybee by Craig Silvey. Okay. It's a novel. It's quite a challenging read. I don't know if there would be some trigger warnings in this for some people, I think, but it's a beautiful story about a queer young person in Australia just finding their joy and their voice and their identity. And Craig Silvey's an Australian writer. On a side note, there's an interesting kind of discussion about whether a straight white man can write a queer person's story. And I think there's discussion to have about that, but we'll just put a pin in that. That's another podcast.
We'll put that in our author titled chat. Anyway, continue.
Totally, yeah. So this is quite towards the end of the book, and this is just so walnutty, like I can't even.
Okay, ready.
When we don't think we're worth much, we find ways to make our world small. We don't allow ourselves to hope because we've already accepted failure. And this pattern of thinking often determines the outcome of our most important choices. But I have to tell you that doubt and confidence are both acts of faith. They're both predictions of our capabilities. We either tell ourselves that we can or that we can't. And these beliefs are a self-fulfilling prophecy because we validate our doubts by giving up just as much as we embolden ourselves by refusing to give in. The only way you can break this cycle is to be brave. You have to ignore your doubts and risk failure. You have to try to achieve something that seemed unachievable. This is the best recipe for confidence. And confidence is how we start giving ourselves permission to take up more space in the world, to want more for ourselves, and to feel as though we deserve it. But you won't know until you put your fears aside and prove it to yourself.
I'm dead again. I'm dead and crying again. And bye-bye mascara. Oh my God.
Is that not the most walnutty paragraph that's ever been written, except for obviously second to your book?
Oh my God. That is so, thank you so much for sharing that. And Walnut, I'll message Tessa separately and get the names of the books and all the things so you can come back to them. Maybe I'll get a little screenshot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't really, rounded. Consider ourselves rounded and crying.
I know, it's so and that's all from me. But I just thank you so much for having me on and validating me by saying, yeah, come have a chat, because it was scary. I was like, oh, what if she says, no, I'm busy, or I don't know.
Oh, I love it. No, I'm so grateful. Tessa, before I ask you, I mean, you've already answered the token guest question, but I'm going to ask you again anyway. But before we close up this episode, is there anything left on your heart that you feel like you have left out, or that you want to say to a walnut, or if you want to give them some homework and something to read?
Homework. So I think it's just the idea of feeling joy, like finding joy and being fulfilled as a person. I think I've only just recently learned that if you want to feel fulfilled and find joy and feel whole, that does not have to require self-sacrifice. I think you don't have to find meaning by almost killing yourself in the process to try and do something that is just too hard, or sacrifice yourself for something that doesn't need you to, which is, for me, was teaching. I was a very good teacher, and I loved working with the students, and I really enjoyed my work, but it was killing me. And I felt fulfilled by my work, but it wasn't worth it. Like I can find fulfillment somewhere else, and I have. And now my life is full of all sorts of things, and I have time to do things like this with you. I have energy to do things like this because I found fulfillment in other areas. So I think if walnuts listening are doing things that are draining them because they think that's what fulfills them, it doesn't have to be that way. I say anyway, and I know not everybody's situation is the same, but that's what my realization was about a year and a half ago, going, this doesn't have to be like this. That's what I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. I love that. And I didn't even get to talk to you about, I wanted to hear the story about leaving teaching and the courage that would have taken and things. So we're going to have to do a part two.
We'll do another one. We'll do a part two. That's fine.
But on this day, Walnut Wednesday, Tessa, what does being a walnut mean to you?
Being a walnut means being honest with yourself. So being honest in a way that, why do I want to fit into that size of clothes? Why am I doing that? Why am I working in this job that I hate? Why do I start every email with sorry? Like, why is it when I ask a question in meetings, I start with, I might have missed it. I'm just going to clarify, because I probably missed it because I'm a stupid little girl and I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's being honest with yourself and enough to ask yourself why, because you might find that there is no answer, and therefore you can make those changes. That's what I did anyway. It's being honest. It's being honest with yourself, which is hard, walnuts. That is so hard, because you have to undo all of this mental trauma. Like, for my whole life, every mirror or window I walk past, I turn to the side and make sure that my belly wasn't sticking out too far. Every fucking reflective surface was like, what's my belly doing? What's that? And only in the last year have I stopped doing that, and that was hard. So it's about acknowledging, like, that behavior is very unhealthy and unsafe, and I had to be honest with myself about that. That's me.
Thank you, Tessa Hope. thank you so much. I got insanely triggered because I related to literally every single thing you just
Sorry,
said.
I was trigger warning.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just because I've been there, and Walnut, we've been there too, right? So, this has been such a great episode. I don't actually want it to end. I would love to keep talking to you, Tessa, but thank you so much for your time and for reaching out and for being my friend.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. You are doing such amazing stuff, and I'm so proud of you, and I just admire the work you're doing, and you are the brave Walnut. And because if you hadn't done the podcast, I wouldn't be reaching out being like, I also have things to say. So you inspired me, Walnut. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope we can do it again. And lots of aroha and lots of good feelings. And that anybody listening, you can find your voice too, but you have to ask yourself what that is. You have to have an honest conversation with yourself. It's just hard.
I don't need to even close Walnut because Tessa just did it like chef's kiss. Walnut, thank you for being here and thank you for your time. And I speak for myself and Tessa, I'm sure. Any questions, anything you want to talk about more, reach out to either of us. Tessa, I didn't ask where your Instagram is, like how to contact you. I'll put it in the show notes, Walnut.
Put it in the show notes.
Jump in the walnut tree or just get in touch, Walnut, if you have any questions or any follow-up or want to have further safe discussions about anything that we sort of covered. And it's okay if you don't agree or if you have questions. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. I love you so much. You're beautiful, you're sexy, you're delicious. And Tessa, again, thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Love you all very much. Lots of good feelings. Take care of yourself.
Have a happy Walnut Wednesday, and I'll talk to you next week.